kita presentation ni. Sebab nota ni memang dalam English, saya tak sempat nak translate. Ya, so kita campur lah. So ni tajuk yang saya dapat. Saya tak berhajat untuk membentang sebenarnya. Saya lebih nak jadi pendengar. Tapi disebabkan hari itu tak ada orang, so I volunteer myself lah. Yeah, so I don't know whether my understanding is correct or not. Yeah, so later you guys can share lah. Yeah, boleh share lagi pendapat. Okay, so ni tajuk yang saya dapat, society and individual. Okay, so mula-mula dia cakap pasal society and state. So he said that society regards virtue as a means to strength, power and order. And then state, he said, as an apparatus to control society, and externally means to go to war. So this is what he understands by state. And I think state and society ini memang berkait rapat lah. Yeah, we can I think use it interchangeably lah, ya. State and society ni memang saling berkait. Okay, lepas tu and then dia kata the state can contradict an individual's nature. Mungkin state mahukan benda lain dan individual nature mungkin lain, tapi disebabkan kemahuan state atau society, individual kena ikut lah, kena follow. Okay, so nationalism lah dekat sini saya rasa. Okay, and then man's drive for power is called freedom. Okay, this is how he defines freedom. Okay, and then he criticizes important values like justice, equality, utilitarian. Yeah, basically memang he criticizes a lot of things. Yeah, and values. Yeah. And then interesting term, moral narcotics. Okay, the right to defend and to attack, sometimes on false pretexts. So yeah, he's also against moral or morality. Yeah, I'm not sure why. Tapi yeah, he's always criticizing moral. Yeah, from the beginning of this chapter that I'm supposed to present ni. And until the end, ya, mesti dalam setiap tu mesti he likes to mention about morality. And then right, okay, what is right according to him is acquired through treatise, okay, but self-protection and self-defense is not based on, I cannot see that, I think based on treatise. Yeah, but to me some treaties were not even fair. Yeah, Germany paid a heavy price for that. Okay. Okay, wait. Okay, next. Yeah. Okay. Now he talks about yeah, see, morality, yeah, is essentially the means of ensuring the duration of something beyond individual rather than rather through an enslavement of the individual. So I think yeah, he has a very negative perception, or he doesn't like what he understood as morality lah. Yeah, you can find this at page 387. Okay, and then he said to maintain, or the maintain of military state means what? Assurances of peace are merely again narcotics. Okay, so he's somehow, I don't know, yeah, he feels that peace ni macam melemahkan, yeah, melemahkan state atau society. He's always against the apa-apa yang mainstream, I guess, yeah, he's always against it. And then his perception of marriage is also interesting, yeah. According to him, it's not based on love, yeah, it's other reasons. So as having children, yeah, he quoted from the Bible, I think, thou shalt not procreate. So I don't know, maybe it's out of context. So in yeah, within the context that he quoted that. And then the concept of punishment and reward. In Christianity, punishment is seen as something positive to purify the sin. Same thing I think in Islam also. Yeah, we believe in, if you receive certain punishment, sometimes is to purify your soul. But Nietzsche disapprove of this. Yeah, he does not like this. And then he praised a rebel, a good virtue, according to him, if it's with the in the right situation, yes, it can become something that is plausible. Yeah, a rebel does not necessarily mean something or someone, someone that is bad, especially if you're against those who oppress you. Then yeah, a rebel is something good. Okay, a good virtue. And then next, also discusses on criminality. He refers to Dostoevsky. He's a writer. I haven't read any of his books yet, but heard of his name. A very famous writer, and I guess he influenced Nietzsche. So yeah, he mentioned about Dostoevsky in the Siberian prison. Yeah, a case of moral contempt. Yeah, not everybody that went to prison are bad. Yeah, it depends. It could be political reason, or it could be because they have done something wrong. They have go against the law. Okay, next. Okay, he also wrote that equal rights and universal ideas are despised ideas. I don't really understand why. Yeah, that's why I put a question mark there. Yeah, so if someone later can explain why is that something bad. And then the economic unification of Europe, to him, he considered that as a peace party. Okay, and then suddenly I don't understand this one. Yeah, suddenly he writes on our support. Yeah, he refers to him or our and his friends, I guess, as the immoralists. Yeah, page 396. So okay, open to discussion also lah, this one. Okay, next. His response to democracy, interesting, represents the disbelief in great human beings. Even, is it even? I cannot see my own. Okay. Everyone is equal to everyone else. Okay. At bottom, we are one and all, self-seeking cattle and mob. Page 397. So yeah, he likes to refer to the people as cattle and mob. In some extents, to some extent, I think it's it can be correct. Yeah, we can see nowadays also. Yeah, people rather follow. Yeah, that's what cattle do. Yeah, they just follow without understanding anything. Mob is referred to people who are angry, who are very emotional. They don't use reason. Yeah, they don't think. They just follow their emotion. If they're angry, then yeah, they're very angry. They cannot reason out things. Okay, and then yeah, so to him, he does not like democracy. And he also he also opposed socialism and anarchism, parliamentary government and press. So I don't know what he liked. Yeah, what he supported. Yeah, everything seems to be wrong to him. Okay, so and then he said the arming of the people is ultimately the arming of the mob. Again, yeah, referring to the people as the mob. Okay, next. Okay, slavery today. Today means during his time in the 1800s, yeah, late 1800s. Utility and pleasure are slave theories of life. So perhaps it's referring to the Industrial Revolution then, yeah. And then he blames, he's very anti-Christian. He blames Christianity for individuals to play judge because of having a soul. So again, I don't know why, he disliked this idea of the soul, divine equality of souls. He does not like that also. Yeah, he disliked it. So I fail to understand this. And then his opinions on God. Okay, this is what written lah. Yeah, there is no being that could be held responsible for the fact anyone exists at all. So, yeah, agnostic, I guess. Yeah, an agnostic point of view. So, yeah, I would welcome comment on this as well later. Okay, next. Okay, now the individual. Okay, the individual, according to him, derives everything from himself, his own interpretation. So, meaning very subjective and relative. Okay, we all have our own interpretation. And then freedom, degree of resistance. Okay, this one is a bit positive. I think among other things, this is yeah, the positive thing coming from him. Yeah, so it's like it's positive. Yeah, like the will to power. He compared that to his will of power, which to me also I think can also mean empowerment. Okay, and then modern European is characterized by two apparently opposite traits. Ni according to him, yeah, individualism and demands for equal rights. So that is what that is very apparent during that time, and I guess until now, yeah, it spreads all over the world. Okay, and then individualism is a modest and still unconscious form of the will to power, to be free from an overpowering domination by society or state or church. That is state or church. So, yeah, I guess that's what he wants to portray. Yeah, the will to power means to free yourself from the society, from the state, from the church. Sounds a bit like an anarchy, but again, he also disliked anarchy. Okay, and then number 5, one desires freedom so long as one does not possess power. Once one possessed it, one desires to overpower. Yeah, so if cannot do that, one desires justice or equal power. So this is his definition of freedom, power, and justice. Okay, so also a bit how would I say, nak kata distorted, distorted, macam pelik jugalah ya, dia punya pandangan terhadap freedom and power and justice ni. Kalau kita lihat dari persepsi lain, tapi dia nampak dari persepsi yang ni lah, sisi ni. Okay, and then okay, back to morality. There are no moral actions whatsoever according to him. So it's just imaginary, dia kata. So is it nihilism? So that's why I put a question mark there. Okay, and there are neither moral nor immoral actions. Again, yeah. So quite confused here lah. Okay. Yeah, would appreciate if someone can enlighten me on this. And I go strong against priests. Yeah, dia tak suka agamawan ni, saints and everything holy. Yeah. So despise the Luther's Reformation. And also against determinism. Okay, and then okay, lastly, good and evil. Okay, action cannot be called good and evil in themselves, but only in the perspective of what tends to preserve certain types of human communities. Sorry, typo there. So is this what beyond good and evil means? Yeah, into nihilism. So again, yeah, he does not want to give a definition to what is good, what is evil. Yeah, because according to him, everything is either it doesn't exist or it depends on a person's interpretation. So yeah, it's very vague. So I don't know. Tak boleh nak faham apa yang dia nak cuba sampaikan. Okay, so setakat ni the end. Okay, itu saja.
Habis tak?
Ya, dah habis. Berapa sekarang? Oh, awal lagi.
Sangat padat, 15 minit habis. Kita ada masa banyak panjang untuk berbincang.
Ya. So sekarang ni saya buka pada perbincangan. Siapa-siapa nak apa kongsi pendapat, pandangan.
Ya, persilakan sesiapa boleh unmute atau type di chat pun boleh.
Rasa macam panjang. Tapi tiba-tiba cepatlah pula.
Tak apa, kita ada masa untuk berbincang lagi lah, cantik kan.
Assalamualaikum.
Darab.
Saya rasa antara benda yang menarik lah untuk bincang dan konsep. Kalau boleh show balik slide tadi, saya ada satu konsep yang relate freedom dengan power dengan justice.
Oh, yang tu. Okey, kejap ya. Sekejap.
Rasa menarik untuk bincang tu.
Tu dekat individuals ni. Sekejap ya. Yang nombor 5 ni ke?
Ya. Macam
Okey.
mana kaitan antara freedom dengan power
Dekat, kejap nama saya tak. Dalam teks tu dia ada mention secara, tapi tak detail lah, tu lah kata. Dia macam nota dia sangat ringkas. Lepas tu dia cuma bagi tahu macam tu je. Dia cuma tulis, dia tak panjang pun. Dia cuma bagi penerangan dia tulis pendek macam tu je. Dia bagi, so kita pun tu lah saya kata, saya pun tak boleh nak faham apa yang dia nak apa maksudkan dengan apa one desires freedom so long as one does not possess power. So maksudnya kalau dia tak ada power, dia nak freedom. Okay, but once one possess it, bila dia dah dapat power, one desires to overpower, dia nak I guess lebih lah, more power, overpower or to overpower something, tak sure apa maksud dia. And then if one if you cannot do that, kalau dia tak dapat power tu, then one desires justice or equal power. So macam dia punya goal sebenarnya dia nak power, tapi bila dia tak dapat, so barulah dia pergi pada justice, equal power. So macam maksudnya dia nak kata ada sort of ambition or a bad, not to say bad ambition lah, tapi macam an ambition lah, very ambitious person. That's what nak kata dia generalize people ke, I'm not sure lah, maybe lah kot. Ya, dia nak kata people actually want power, tapi kalau dia tak dapat power, after freedom lah, of course, I think many of us lah, we want freedom. So after freedom is some of us lah maybe would want power. And if we cannot get power, then only we go to justice, which to me is not that accurate lah kan. Tapi tak tahulah. Okay, yang lain macam mana?
Saya rasa macam menarik kat perbincangan ni sebab maybe mungkin ni je tujukan pada golongan tertentu kot. Tapi in generalnya bagi saya semua orang nakkan freedom. Tapi that does not mean semua orang nakkan power, betul tak? Just want to throw discussion here.
Ya, betul.
Freedom tu something yang kita semua nak lah. Mana ada orang nak terkongkong kan? I don't know lah kalau ada orang suka. Tapi
ada certain orang dia sebab tu dalam slavery kadang-kadang kan certain people dia nak sebab dia dah comfortable, dia dah ada master, dia dah terjamin, dia dah dapat makan. Jadi certain people dia tak nak lebih. Sebab tu macam kalau kita nak fight for independence pun ada yang tak nak. Dia kata dah duduk dengan orang putih dah selesa. Why do we want to fight for freedom? Bila kita fight for freedom, kita kena buat balik benda from scratch. We have to do everything. We have to be independent. So setengah orang dia tak nak. They don't want to be independent. They are comfortable with being dependent.
Betul juga ya.
Ya. Kan ada pepatah kata to be free something is a curse ya. Sesuatu macam tu. Sat yang kata, siapa yang kata.
Sebab you have to be strong lah. Nak be free, you have to be strong and independent.
Nak free tu bukan senang. Nietzsche ni memang dia panjang lebar hujah tentang freedom, free spirit tu. Jadi di sini saya tak berapa pasti perenggan yang mana, memang ada terbaca tadi. Power dengan freedom tu kan, dia kata kendaki kan freedom, kemudian yang lebih lagi dia mau power tu. Ni saya rasa selari lah dengan kerangka The Will of Power untuk buku ni.
Ya, tapi yang kelakarnya dia kata kalau tak dapat power baru dia pergi pada justice.
Yalah, dalam ruangan chat ada 2 komen sana. Interesting untuk baca.
Ya, dia kata ni siapa ya?
Abram dengan Intan.
Okay, justice is only desired by the weak. Okay, and then Intan cakap justice is most desired by the victimized. Victim lah yang nak justice ya. Yang those who oppress do not want justice. Macam ada seorang kita punya ni asyik nak lari pada mahkamah je.
Ini sebenarnya boleh kita rujuk kepada Plato Republic. Dalam sana ada satu karakter yang namanya Thrasymachus. Dia kata might is right, something like that. Power kepada orang yang lebih berkuasa. Kata hak kepada orang yang lebih berkuasa. Jadi orang yang lebih berkuasa tu dia tak nak untuk equality. Dia menikmati kuasa dia. Apa dia nak bagi kuasa kepada yang lemah tu untuk membahagikan kebahagiaan dia kan. Dia suka buat apa, dia buat saja. Dia powerful, apa saja dia boleh buat. Jadi itu satu tesis yang sangat tua lah, dari zaman Plato pun sampai Nietzsche. Dia masih lagi berdebat lagi, masih bahas lagi lah. Jadi dalam ruangan chat tu pun kan benda yang sama, justice tu weakling dengan victimize. Mungkin kita boleh samakan juga victimize tu the weak. Jadi siapa yang lebih berkuasa dalam untuk memberi takrifan tu, siapalah yang dapat untung dia yang lebih.
Tapi saya rasa the weak, the victimized, they are not weak. Ya, kalau dia weak, dia tak akan boleh lawan balik. So they are strong actually. Ya, those who are weak adalah orang yang tak nak berubah. Those who do not want change, they resist change and they don't want freedom lah. Basically, they want to be a slave.
Okay, I have a comment. Boleh?
Boleh.
Thanks. Thank you to siapa yang tadi yang raise this issue, Saudara Mokhtar. Yes, I think this is an important issue for discussion because it relates the concept of freedom with the will to power. It makes a close association. So since we have plenty of time, I would like to go through this slide that Sharifano prepared. So the individual, first of all, the individual derives everything from himself. That means this is based on his own subjective or relativistic perception. Okay, freedom is the degree of resistance towards those in power, I am assuming. So that is when, there was actually another phrase that you used earlier, in your earlier slide, where you related freedom dengan will to power actually. I preferred that sentence that you used in your earlier slide. I think it was more accurate. Maybe we can go back to that later.
Okay.
And then this number 3, okay, modern European in his time is characterized by 2 apparently opposite traits, individualism and demand for equal rights. I think this is a pertinent point. Both is correct, individualism, but at the same time, they are demanding equal rights. So it seems contradictory.
Okay.
Because if you judge the individual, then you will see that they have different levels of knowledge, or power, or rights. They are not the same, but yet, while they are claiming for individualism, they want all individuals to have equal rights. But when you compare individuals, instantly you will see differences at various degrees. So how can there be equal rights just on the basis of everyone is a human being? So perhaps different types of human beings are allocated different rights. I think perhaps this is what he's alluding to. So number 4, individualism is a modest and still unconscious form of the will to power, to be free from an overpowering domination by society, i.e. state or church. Okay, fine. So the extent that an individual can resist the laws or the moral grounds of the society or the church indicates his level of freedom. Fine. Okay, that's fine. I can agree with that. Then one desires freedom so long as one does not possess power. Agreed as well. Just like Abraham has pointed out, usually those people that is championing for we want more freedom, we want more freedom, it's because they do not have power. It's because they are being subjected to control by those people in power. But once one possesses it, one desires to overpower. Okay, fine. One desires justice, i.e. equal power. Okay, so this is the last concluding part which I would like to focus on. So if one desires freedom so long as one does not possess power. Once one possesses power, one possesses freedom, one desires to overpower. If one cannot possess power, meaning if the weak, the victimized cannot possess power, one desires justice in the sense of equal power, which brings us back to equal rights. So I think basically what he's saying is a bit too much to expect to have individual rights and demand for equal rights at the same time, because it seems contradictory. Once you recognize that individuals are unique and have different levels of capacities, then you have to give way for different rights or different levels of rights, different privileges, and you also have to consider the different powers. That's what I think lah. So it's all very complicated.
Yes, dia macam can be contradictory. And
Boleh saya tambah sikit?
boleh sila.
Okey, saya setujulah dengan apa yang Intan sebutkan tadi, dan kalau kita lihat memang seolah-olahnya buku ini tidak memberikan jawapan, kerana sefahaman saya lah, buku ini adalah untuk mengubah paradigma yang sedia ada, di mana saya tak tahu, mungkin saudara Liu lebih tahulah tentang beyond good and evil kan. Jadi sebenarnya dia cuba nak menunjukkan bahawa it's not about what people used to discuss when it comes to morality and ethics. You know, people talk about inilah equal rights, justice, individualism. Sebab itulah dalam buku ini daripada awal sampai ke akhir dia akan kembali kepada will to power. Dia cuba meletakkan managing will to power itu yang menjadikan the crux of the morality. Jadi dia tidak bercadang pun untuk memberikan jawapan. Dia hanya membuka membuka masalah di sekeliling will to power, dan dia akan mengaitkan dengan apa yang ramai orang menganggap bahawa inilah dia morality, tetapi dia against to that. Dia menunjukkan bahawa kalau kita berpegang kepada values ini masih lagi kita menghadapi dengan banyak masalah. Tetapi di situlah kalau kita lihat even will to power itself is criticized by him. Even from the very beginning of the book, dia pun cakap bahawa will to power ni bukannya nak kata baik atau buruk. is about, itu yang dia buka, tetapi sekurang-kurangnya Nietzsche di dalam buku ini cuba menunjukkan bahawa walaupun buku ini dikatakan tidak dikompil oleh beliau sendiri, tetapi seolah-olahnya yang kita boleh baca, the central theme is coming back to the will to power. Dan inilah bertitik tolak kepada banyak permasalahan morality dan ethics yang ada, dan dia menyanggahlah pendapat-pendapat theories on morality yang banyak sangat membincangkan tentang perkara-perkara yang disebutkan ni. Antaranya kita tahu kan dia yang pertama dia tidak suka bila orang mengongkong, dia nak inginkan kebebasan, tapi sebaliknya dia tidak juga mengatakan freedom. Jadi itu yang saya boleh nampak. Jadi memang buku ini tidak memberikan jawapan, tetapi bagi saya kita boleh faham apa yang beliau cuba bawakan dalam pemahaman terhadap morality inilah. Itu saja. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Dr. Amila.
Nak tambah sikit, saya rasa mungkin juga dia bila dia cakap pasal demand of equal rights tu, mungkin juga dia refer pada apa yang berlaku di Perancis, revolusi Perancis rasanya sekitar waktu tu. So perhaps he is also commenting
Awal
on
sikit.
what's awal sikit. Yeah. So
Jadi maksud saya walaupun macam tu, dia tidak semestinya apa yang disebut ni tidak berlaku dalam konteksnya. Of course dia akan reflect kepada konteksnya, tetapi bagi dia apabila kita hanya membicarakan tentang isu itu sahaja, kita tidak akan menyelesaikan juga masalah tu.
Saya setuju dengan Dr. Amila lah. Kita kalau nak cari jawapan dari Nietzsche sebenarnya bahaya. Dia lebih suka pada kritik, kemudian gagagan dasar yang kita anggap sebagai kebenaran. Itu yang dia nak buat, dia bukan nak bagi jawapan pun. Kalau nak cari jawapan dengan Nietzsche, saya rasa sesuatu yang bahaya tu. Apa yang peranan yang dia mainkan, dia suruh kita berfikir sendiri. Kita kena bertanggungjawab untuk kita sendiri. Kita kena buat kerja tu untuk ikhtiarkan apa yang kita kena lakukan. Itu yang dinamakan freedom oleh dia. Bukan freedom yang dibagi orang lain. Kita yang kena carikan freedom tu. Satu lagi, saya tak tahu sesuai tak untuk bawa isu inilah. Dia suka cakap pasal herd mentality kan. Selalu dia cakap herd ni, herd tu. Kita, demokrasi kan, Malaysia, kita guna istilah rakyat. Rakyat ni kalau tak silap ikut bahasa Arab sendiri, dia membawa maksud juga herd ni. Dari sana mungkin kita boleh juga buat bandingan. Tak tahu ada orang yang setuju dengan saya.
So the other thing, Sharifah Noor, maybe you can come back with some of your opinion pasal this individual, the state, and the church, and freedom, power, and rights. So when he's talking, I think the main issue here, which I see, is about the distribution of rights and powers between the individual and the church and the state. So for example, if you look at their society at that time when he was writing, or if we look at our society at our time, do we see an agreeable distribution of rights and powers between the different sectors in society or in institutions? For example, is it the theologians and their institutions that is powerful? Or is it the executive, the ministers, and the politicians that are more powerful in terms of religious affair and religious rules or fatwa? Another example would be and in this sense, that is about distribution of power. Now, this distribution of rights. How do we address the distribution of individual rights in Islam? In the context of Malaysian legal system, because we have quite a complicated tier and different categories. We have the Sharia, and then we have the civil law, and then we have different bodies and different fatwas from different states, and sometimes they do not agree. So in this instance, I was just watching, there was this YouTube video by one of the Professor Dr. Alatas, I'm not sure which one lah, anak dia. So he was criticizing because he's saying that the theologians or those people in the bureaucrats in the religious department, they are not really qualified or have the intellectual or academic level to make fatwas. And sometimes when it's clearly wrong, it still has to be accepted by society. So how do we deal with that?
Okay, that's a long question. Okay, distribution of power. I'm not sure lah to compare of Europe during Nietzsche time and now. Perhaps during that time it's a transition, I think, from the church to the state, and then from monarchy to the republic, I think, Germany. So a lot of transition there, and obviously distribution of power. But Germany is a, what do you call, is a homogeneous, quite a homogeneous country. So they don't have a lot of ethnicities there. Like our country, we are more what we call, we are multi ethnicities, and then that cause a lot of trouble also when we don't really fairly distribute rights to people, and then it creates a lot of that certain people are not satisfied, and then certain people feel they're entitled to it. And then when it comes to distribution, I mean, of power, of course, I think our ministers, the executive, because our country, we are using parliamentarian, so the executive and the legislative, they hold the same, can be the same person. So a lot of power there. We don't really have a good separation of power. And our judiciary is also very easily influenced. So memang too much power. When there's too much power, of course the tendency for corruption is there, and authoritarian and other things. Okay, that will be the distribution of power. And about religious authorities, yes, I do agree. I think that was Said Ali Taufik. I think he's talking about JAKIM. And yes, JAKIM is and other state religious affairs, to me, they are very problematic. And because they are not binded by the federal, they are state. So this state has different laws, religious, what do you call that? Religious fatwas or edicts or whatever. And then so it's very messy to me. And we should have to be one federal is enough. Federal religious department if they want to have it. But then again, when it's there's a lot of intervention, ideological intervention. So it becomes sometimes a tool for propaganda. Dia tak jadi telus. Sepatutnya majlis agama ni dia menyelesaikan masalah, tapi kadang-kadang dia tak menyelesaikan, tapi dia menimbulkan lebih banyak masalah. And dan kadang-kadang beri persepsi yang buruk lah, macam a lot of cases lah, yang paling hot baru-baru ni timah lah. The timah issue, and then halal haram, halal JAKIM halal punya cert is very confusing sometimes, and they like to focus on petty issues. Simbol lah, tak boleh letak Merry Christmas lah. So I also don't understand why Muslims like to focus on very petty issues and make such a big deal out of it. Sedangkan kita banyak lagi benda yang besar yang we can discuss, but we don't want that. So that's my response.
I want to chip in, not Muslim in general, but Muslim in certain very limited context.
Okey, boleh saya nak sentuh sikit. Mula dengan apa yang Saudara Liu sebutkan tentang herd itu kan, rakyah itu. Jadi dalam Islam, kita kena faham dalam Islam banyak dimensi. So of course when we talk about the social kind of arrangement, then we have that kind of arrangement lah. So di mana ada pemimpin mesti ada pengikut, tetapi di dalam Islam tidak semestinya pengikut itu lemah. Itu yang kita faham dalam Islam, dan bagaimana hadis sangat menekankan tentang pentingnya pemimpin, dan pemimpin sebenarnya boleh meletakkan sebelah kaki sudah bersedia untuk masuk syurga, manakala mungkin sebelah lagi boleh masuk neraka. So that is about the responsibility yang perlu diambil kira, tidak mengira. Jadi saya nak mengatakan di sini bahawa pemahaman rakyat ataupun di sisi Islam lain daripada Nietzsche, tetapi saya juga merasa agak benarlah apa yang sebenarnya Nietzsche mencari satu sistem yang pemerhatian saya lah, yang dapat membentuk identiti manusia yang sangat tinggi nilai. Jadi di sini dia menghadapi masalah kerana baginya biasanya kalau sebab ramai orang yang tidak nampak apa yang dia nampak, jadi dia rasa hanya cream out of the cream sahaja yang mampu untuk ni, dan sistem yang dia nampak tidak boleh, itulah tidak memberikan kebebasan, menindas, agama itu sendiri menindas dan sebagainya. Disebabkan itulah dia memahami bahawa maknanya kalau kita duduk kawan dalam sekawan itu kambing itu, kita akan menjadi lemah lah kerana mengikut dictate of the ni. Tapi itu yang saya boleh katakan. Sementara apa yang Intan timbulkan, saya rasa itu memerlukan satu webinar kot. Beberapa orang baru boleh menjawab. Tetapi bagi saya tidak pasti dalam isu apa yang sampai mereka mengatakan bahawa orang buat fatwa, maknanya okay, of course there are weaknesses. That's why we have to understand that. Sebab tu dalam Islam sekurang-kurangnya kita tahu bahawa manusia untuk berijtihad itu berijtihad itu sudah memberikan satu kebebasan. Tetapi I would say that kalau lebih ramai orang yang berfikiran luas mungkin menyertai, mungkin akan jadi lebih baiklah. So that is a kind of improvement yang kita boleh buat. Sementara saya rasa dalam law, termasuk law of Islam, syariah law dalam perkahwinan dan sebagainya, of course kita tak kata apabila kita ada law yang baik maka semua masalah akan selesai. And I believe that all laws have with good intention. So law tu sepatutnya dijalankan, of course sebab apa dia meletakkan enactment semua tu, sebab ada filosofi, sebab di bahagian disebutkan. Dan dalam Islam kita tahu dia ada maqasid dan sebagainya. Tetapi manusia, manusia ni, sebab bila kita sebut tentang undang-undang Islam ni, of course lah ia sangat berkait rapat dengan hak wanita, hak perkahwinan kan. Selain daripada yang mungkin Sharifah sebut tadilah dari segi halal. Tetapi di sinilah kadang-kadang manusia disebabkan kelemahan mereka, mereka boleh menggunakan apa sahaja yang ada dalam undang-undang itu untuk mengambil peluang. Itu masalahnya. Sebab itulah kalau saya baca buku Diras tu, dalam dia punya bab intention, dia mengatakan bahawa betapa indahnya satu-satu peraturan itu sekiranya ia tidak dijalankan dengan niat yang baik, maka ia akan menjadi rosak. Dan itulah yang berlaku dalam Islam. Dan kalau nak kata antara negeri-negeri, memang bagus kalau kita boleh ada keseragaman, kerana mungkin kita lihat budaya yang agak sama di Malaysia. Tetapi itulah, saya tak rasa perbezaan yang sangat besar sampai inilah. Yang selebihnya saya rasa sebab administration ataupun managing, itulah macam halal dan sebagainya kan. Itu saya tak boleh komen lah. Saudara Abraham tanya adakah agama yang menindas, so saya tak tahulah. Saya rasa tidak adalah sampai menindas. Mungkin adalah beberapa pengalaman yang macam seolah-olah mahkamah tidak boleh undang-undang tidak boleh membela lah kan orang yang mungkin benar, orang yang teraniaya, tetapi seolah-olah yang salah tidak diberikan hukuman. Itu adalah sebab tu adat dunia kan, sebab tu kita percaya ada balasan selepas ini. Dan untuk kita mengatakan untuk mempunyai undang-undang yang cukup baik, maka kehidupan kita akan senang di atas muka bumi, sebenarnya itu tidak akan berlaku pun. Sebab kita tahu konsep kehidupan Islam pun adalah ujian, kan? Bukanlah makna kita nak hidup susah, tetapi kadang-kadang nasib itu, itulah kalau orang tasawuf ada lagi dia punya inilah. Itu je kot saya yang saya boleh ni. Minta maaf lah panjang sikit.
Ya, saya pun nak tambah, kalau nak cakap agama tu menindas, mungkin sudah terkeluar daripada sempadan tu lah. Agama sendiri itu menunjukkan kita sepatutnya berbuat baik. Adalah yang ada agama yang sesat apa tu. Tapi secara keseluruhan, agama ni satu konsep dari Sanskrit pun. Dia ada di dalam hati setiap orang tu. Dia bukan satu institusi yang macam satu jemaah banyak-banyak orang macam tu. Tapi itu isu lain lah mungkin.
Saya rasa agama tak menindas. Yang menindas tu orang yang menginterpretasikan agama tu dengan interpretasi yang salah, yang menyalahgunakan agama tu. Agama tu sendiri tak bersalah sebenarnya.
Bram, tambah lagi? Boleh baca?
Sekejap.
Yes, I think Abraham is asking for specific examples. In fact, I have asked 4 times already. In fact, I think Sharifah Noh and
Bagi
Amrita
concrete
has already
example.
given examples. But maybe if you want another example, for example, the thing that is really become an international issue and current right now about the allegations of mistreatment and unfairness by Sajjad in Australia now. Okay, so it's become an international issue because she's seeking refugee status. It's gone to the UN. Bilateral relationship between Malaysia and Australia. People are wondering. Now she's going to the US to go on a reality show with Ellen DeGeneres to tell her stories. So how do we address this narrative? Because she is claiming that this is against her human rights, her own Muslim rights. So this is an example if you want to discuss.
Yeah, a good example, Intan. Abraham macam tak puas hati ya. So hopefully maybe Abraham boleh bercakap sendiri daripada menulis. Yeah, I think it's quite banyak kalau nak tengok problematic dia punya ni actions dia, Sajjad is a good example. Yeah, why do they have to keep on harassing Sajjad for? And then benda ni banyak khilaf, bukan khilaf lah, ada perbincangan transgender ni dalam Islam bukannya. So I mean kenapa perlu be so judgmental, macam Nisha cakap lah, kadang-kadang certain people, especially religious people, they like to play God, like to judge, say this is wrong, this is right, absolute wrong and absolute right. Mana it's not binary, mana tengah-tengah dia, nuances dia. So banyak isu, macam same goes with isu timah tu lah. Lepas tu isu tak boleh sebut Merry Christmas lah, Merry Christmas kedai dekat kek kau tak silap I pun tak boleh. So these are to be quite silly things. And you memalukan diri you sendiri lah.
Sampai non-Muslim macam saya nak bagi salam pun nak baca segan kan. Oh, sudah keluar fatwa cakap non-Muslim tak boleh. Apa ni kan. Sepatutnya orang agama kena aim lah yang lebih tinggi ni, tapi isu biar orang sendiri settle. Ini nak Merry Christmas tak Merry Christmas, apa kena mengenai dia. pelik jugalah kalau
Ya,
nak claim exclusive right untuk sebut Allah tu. Setiap orang boleh cakap saja, guna saja istilah. Mungkin dia ada maksudnya sendiri yang berlainan. Mengapa you boleh claim exclusive right? Tak masuk akal bagi saya.
oh, setuju ya. Itu lagi satu isu ya. So banyak isu ya. It's just that you nak acknowledge atau you tak nak acknowledge. Then if you are open-minded enough, you discuss it nicely lah kan. Don't have to be so exclusive ya. Sebab to me Islam is not an exclusive religion ya. Dia very inclusive. So kenapa kita nak jadikan dia eksklusif ya? This is a problem lah.
Okay, Abraham masih lagi ada problem, tapi dia mic tak berfungsi. Dia kena type juga.
Yeah, and he seems not to agree. Tak apalah. It's his opinion. You want to disagree, then it's up to you. But this is my opinion. So you cannot impose your opinion on me. Impose your opinion on me, and I'm not imposing my opinion on you as well.
Sorry for your microphone not
boleh
working.
Tengok juga macam ada banyak benda yang pihak authority buat. Sorry, I didn't realize that ni masuk dengan PPRP. Saya handle last time telah
Dia
mana
tak log
tapi
out
tak
kan,
log out.
semalam.
Patutlah dong, tak ada. So itulah ceritanya. So untuk JAKIM ni memang ada kelemahan yang boleh diperbaiki, tetapi mungkin ada banyak. Yelah, mungkin orang yang duduk di situ hanya memahami macam mana to control people is not also easy. Itu yang saya faham lah. To be an authority tu bukan mudah seperti mana yang dijangka, cuma mungkin dengan lebih berhati-hati mungkin boleh membawa kesan kan yang tidak.
Betul lah, kuasa
faham.
pada tangan dia, orang harus guna dengan betul. Macam nak jawab Abraham, kita tak mempertikaikan ada orang yang lebih berkuasa kan. Cuma kena guna kuasa tu dengan cara yang betul. Ikut cara siapa, itu terpulang lah. Saya tak tahu nak cakap macam mana.
Personally lah, my opinion je, Abraham, I think that the theologians have the responsibility to voice out their knowledge, to give guidance to the people in JAKIM and to speak up, even though it may look politically incorrect. But you have the knowledge, you are the expert. If you think what they are doing does not follow, is not appropriate to according to Islamic Sharia, Islamic moral values as a whole comprehensively, theologians, academicians must speak out. If the people, the knowledgeable people in religion itself do not speak out, then there is no check and balance between the religious people in power and the religious scholars. That's what I think.
Ya,
Tapi saya pun
Sila.
saya pun merasakan kadang-kadang perkara yang dibincangkan di dalam publik ini yang jadi macam ni disebabkan suasana perbincangan tu tau. Dia dilontarkan pada publik yang saya tak pasti, tapi dia jadi isu macam mana satu isu tu boleh dipolitikkan dan boleh macam tu. So mungkin duduk dalam JAKIM dia lain pula nampak ke. Saya nampak sebab sekarang ni semua social media yang mainkan peranan kan. Dalam membincangkan sesuatu perkara. Apabila kita terlalu banyak mendengar pendapat-pendapat itu, boleh menyumbang jugalah kepada suasana yang berlaku tu, boleh jadi nampak panas dan sebagainya. Tanpa kita mungkin tak dengar pun apa penjelasan daripada mereka.
Bagi saya konsep keadilan tu penting lah ya. Kita boleh cakap yang tu subjektif, yang ni subjektif, tapi kena adalah certain benchmark ya, apa itu adil.
Itulah kalau boleh cerita spesifik, itu yang maksud Abraham mungkin. Sebab kalau
Yalah,
kita
kita
macam
dah bagi
logo
banyak
halal dan
example lah
sebagainya
yang
kan.
spesifik ya.
Pasal perayaan, pasal apa?
Dia tengah bising pasal sajat pula.
Sajat
Perangai
tu expectation is JAKIM tak buat
the
apa-apa.
thing is that perangai sajat tu is different thing. His issue of transgender tu is a different thing. You don't conflate things lah kan. You separate things lah. Memanglah perangai dia tu sometimes I pun tak berapa suka. But you know he's doing his perhaps itu cara dia buat marketing, his marketing strategy or what not, I don't know. I'm not his fan. I tak follow dia. But his right is his right lah. Kita kena be fair lah, tak boleh lah. Yeah, be so emotional. We don't become part of the mob lah.
Saya tak
Saya
berapa ikut.
Terasa macam Abram pula dari pihak berkuasa pula.
Tapi mungkin macam kes Sajat tu sebab dia takut the value system orang ini boleh mempengaruhi yang lain dan sebagainya. Itu kita tak tahu, mungkin kita perlu dengar daripada pihak penguasa jugalah macam mana mereka menangani kan. Saya tak tahu, saya tak terlibat macam dan tak
Saya
sempat nak ikut
setuju lah
sangat
dengan
pun.
Dr. Amila cakap. Maksudnya kita apa ya? Kita bersikap adil juga dalam kita menilai JAKIM ke JAIS ke apa-apa institusi agama lah. Pengalaman saya dekat US, kalau tak ada badan macam JAKIM tu, huru-hara sebab siapa boleh letak logo halal. Itu pengalaman saya kat US lah. Saya terpaksa pilih, tanya betul-betul yang disembelih betul ke tak. Disebabkan ada JAKIM, saya rasa logo halal tu membantulah dalam konteks kita nakkan hak kita untuk dapat yang betul-betul halal. Tapi dalam situasi satu sudut lain, macam sekarang ni masalah JAIS. Ni bukan JAKIM, JAIS lah. Isu saf solat. Kalau kat stadium rapat-rapat tak ada masalah. Tapi kenapa saya dengar ramai keluhan daripada ustaz-ustaz. Kenapa Jabatan Agama ni tak revise dia punya SOP dekat dalam surau masjid. Sampai sekarang ramai orang rasa macam tak ada masalah pun, bukan lama pun semayang kan, saf rapat-rapat. Nak berbanding dengan pergi stadium. Tapi ustaz-ustaz ni semua dia ada sifat tawaduk lah. Dia sindir kat Facebook dan sebagainya. Tapi dia tak ada kuasa untuk yang macam mana JAIS ada kuasa. So itu mungkin saya anggap kalau tengok refer pada ustaz-ustaz, bagi saya itu adalah salah guna kuasa lah daripada JAIS. Ataupun saya tak tahu apa isu yang berlaku sampai dia tak nak revise SOP dalam surau masjid. Kalau dia berlaku salah guna kuasa lah, tapi mungkin tak tahulah apa perbincangan dia orang kan. Tapi itu bagi saya itu satu sudut lah. Bagi saya tak boleh kata tak berguna langsung institusi agama. Ataupun dia orang ni perfect pun tak boleh juga. Pandangan saya lah.
Tapi tentang isu halal ni kan baru-baru ni bising pasal daging import yang sebenarnya tak halal, macam mana dia boleh dapat. Yang ada juga kes dengar. Memang kita tak katalah JAKIM semua salah, dia salah, tapi dia tu membawa persepsi, ya, persepsi agama. So kalau dia buat benda yang contradicting ataupun benda yang macam menghukum, so benda tu akan reflect pada agama lah. Orang akan kata, oh agama Islam macam ni ke?
Terputus ya.
Okay, may I change the subject?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is perhaps not related to your chapter at all. I'm just wondering, my concern is when reading Nietzsche, so you can take on many different approach. You can just dismiss him, you can take him really seriously, you can idolize him, etc. But I would like to get your opinion and anybody else's opinions, Noor, Liu, siapa-siapa lah. It seems that a lot of people are claiming that the Second World War and Hitler's policies all originate from Nietzsche's theories. How far do you think that is true? And how far do you think that studying Nietzsche is a dangerous thing which can destabilize society or politics? Anywhere.
So, Sharifah, ada respon?
Ada dengar, I've heard of that, tapi tak sure sebab I tak buat further reading, so I'm not sure. Perhaps it can be misused lah. Yeah, so I'm not sure. Orang lain mungkin?
Ya, mungkin Abram boleh alihkan fokus kepada isu Hitler pula, Nazi. Taklah kita attack yang dekat, yang attack yang jauh tu mungkin taklah. Apa, bahang tu lain sikit ya. Orang lain ada pendapatnya? Ada tak falsafah Nietzsche ni disalahguna oleh Nazi macam tu, Intan?
Yeah, betul. I think you would have some views and perhaps even Sahila. Please, I would appreciate your views.
Call it again. I'm on travel.
Ya, tak dengar Syahilah?
Saya tak dengar. Saya Android pergi balik rumah sekarang.
Oh. Okey. Di isu Yahudi pun satu isu yang sukar jugalah nak kita kalau letak dalam kerangka Nietzsche ni. Kalau baca karya dia memang tidak anti Yahudi. Saya rasa dia tidak akan bersetujulah dengan Holocaust tu. Tapi susah nak kata juga sebab Nietzsche apa-apa pun dia marah. Tak nampak banyak yang apa yang dia setuju. Yang banyak yang dia tunjuk adalah apa yang tidak disetujui.
Ya. Dan kebanyakan tu lah, ya, terutama sekali tentang morality tu agak memang vague lah, kita tak tahu apa baik, what's good, what's bad. Memang dia tak bagi memang tak ada indication lah.
You know, I hear that Hitler was a big fan of Nietzsche. And
Taklah big fan of his sister.
His sister invited Hitler over. Lepas tu his sister even hadiahkan tongkat Nietzsche kepada Hitler. And I think that he was influenced by some of the thoughts and writings of Nietzsche. And in a way, his theories are quite dangerous because, you know, it is encouraging the individual to will to power, to be more critical, to be more brave in putting up resistance against the unfairness or injustice by the church or by the state. So all these kinds of thoughts and ideologies are destabilizing. And I think that is one of the main reasons that a lot of scholars in universities or worldwide are discouraged from reading Nietzsche. They are discouraged from reading Nietzsche in various manners. They say that, okay, for example, these are just notes, this is not comprehensive theory, or for example, Nietzsche is actually anti-Semitic, or for example, Nietzsche is a crazy guy. Why do you want to read his theories? So that's what I think.
But I think that kind of opinion is shifting now. Itu lebih kepada masa selepas World War II kan, lebih orang kritik pada falsafah Nietzsche ni sebab Hitler yang perbuatan dengan will to power disalahgunakan. Tapi sekarang sudah lebih terbuka, walaupun Amerika Britishnya dia orang pun ada kaji Nietzsche dengan lebih mendalam dah. Tak seperti macam Bertrand Russell terang-terang dia menunjukkan dia tidak suka pada Nietzsche macam tu. Suasana sudah berubah.
I do not know how much it has changed because in my experience in 2010 to 2014 when I was studying in the UK, I was studying in the sociology department. So, you know, I was interested in continental philosophy, but I was discouraged because it was dismissed as more to do with literature. And
That's
not
why you
only
are so
by just
bitter
not
on
only
this
by just
analytic
one
now.
university, not only just by the University of Warwick, but also by the University of Bristol, which represents the analytics school in the UK. So I think this divide and this controversy about Nature's policy and its implications or potential misuse still rages on, especially so in non-European countries that have just, started to learn about postmodernism.
Now, saya tak pernah pergi ke UK, tapi saya tahulah analitik dan kontinentalnya divide ni memang dari awal lagi sampai sekarang masih ada. Dan diorang pun accuse Heidegger ni Nazi lah, dia pun pro Hitler lah apa dah. Tapi bagi saya itu lebih pada political side diorang, tak begitu penting untuk kita nak pertikaikan pandangan politik dia masuk ke dalam camp yang mana tu. Lebih penting apa yang dia bawakan idea untuk kita membawa, boleh kembangkan, itu yang lebih penting. Kalau kita masuk ke dalam perangkat macam tu, ini continental, ini analitik, kemudian kita tak patutlah pergi sentuh yang continental macam tu, saya rasa itu bukan satu perangai yang betul lah. Kita harus lebih terbuka sedikit kan. That's my opinion anyway. Okay.
Rasanya dah cukup masa ya. Terima kasih semua.
Ya. Ada soalan apa-apa lagi ya? Kalau tak ada, kita boleh tutup lah untuk malam yang agak bising. Okay, semua selamat malam lah. Ya, terima kasih semua.
Selamat malam Liu, selamat malam everyone.
Okay, selamat malam semua. Thank you semua for participating.
Terima kasih Haifa.
Bye.
Okay, boleh leave
Yes, I end.